This film is like a bowl of cornflakes. Welcome to Agents of Screen. I am your boy Miles, aka the Bald Beyonce, and we are here for my spoiler-free review for The Eternals. And as always, I'm gonna tell you what I liked, what I didn't like, my score out of 10, and if you should see this film in cinemas. Me, I'm good. I went to a spa yesterday and I'm still feeling very peaceful. I'm very relaxed. I had a massage as well, but she was putting her knee, her elbow into my back. I had to look back and see who it was. I thought it was Sagat giving me a massage, like bare tiger elbows. Jesus, it was hurting. I was like, I came here to be relaxed. You're hurting me. I didn't come here to have your elbow in my spine. But overall, the result was I did feel relaxed. So large up Shirley. Her name is not Shirley. I don't know what her name is, but we'll just call her that for now. But what are the Eternals? The Eternals, a race of immortal beings with superhuman powers who have secretly lived on Earth for thousands of years, reunite to battle the evil deviants. Directed by Chloe Zhao, Gemma Chan, Richard Madden, Brian Tyree Henry, Selma Hayek, and Angelina Jolie star in Eternals. That voice is taking a toll on me. I might have to stop that one still. If you enjoy my content, please like, share, and subscribe. And without further ado, let us get into this review. I didn't mean to rhyme, but we'll take it. And off the bat, what I will say is this film has been taking an absolute beating review-wise online. I think last time I checked on Rotten Tomatoes, it was like 50%. I would say for me, that rating isn't accurate, but I can see why it's gotten those scores purely based on this is part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and they have a brand and they have a format, and this is probably the least Marvel movie I've seen within the universe. So if people were going into it expecting or making certain assumptions, albeit inaccurate, having seen the film, they'll be like, oh, like, this is not what I'm used to. So I could see, if that's the reason why, I could see why it's gotten those scores. And that segues me in, is that a word? That segues me into my first pro, and something I enjoyed about the movie, that it doesn't feel like a Marvel movie. And I'm sure reviewers across the internet will be saying something similar, and I know that's a very common thing to say, like, Shang-Chi doesn't feel like a Marvel movie. But this is the first time I have ever uttered it myself. It feels more of a Dune-like, Prometheus-like, Arrival-like type film as opposed to an MCU movie. So it's something new, especially as there's been Marvel fatigue, MCU format fatigue. So it's something I appreciate, something new and fresh. And speaking of new and fresh, I enjoyed the mythology and the expansion of the universe. And it's a marvel within itself, no pun intended, that we are even at a stage where we can get Eternals and Celestials on screen. That's incredible. And this story literally spans centuries, millennia even, and it almost feels biblical at times in terms of the mythology. So they did a good job in terms of cramming everything and keeping it into like a coherent story. The cinematography, especially in the third act of the film, oof! There was one point I audibly said out loud, oof. And Chloe Zhao is someone who is renowned for her cinematography and someone who fought to have natural locations in this movie. And you really got a real gauge for the scope and the scale. When you see the Celestials, they're breathtaking just in terms of how big they are. There was a point in the movie where I wasn't sure what an object is. And when you realize what that object is, it's like, oh my god, how big are they? Pause, but fam. And obviously this is a Marvel movie, but if you like Superman, and in recent times we've been starved of live action Superman content, and there's a character, an Eternal in this film called Icarus, played by Richard Madden, and he's very like Superman in his skill set and his powers. So if you've been starved of it, they do a fire job. You see, I'm seeing Superman in the flesh. Makes you wonder, like, what if Marvel, or Kevin Feige rather, was controlling DC? And what is my favorite thing about the film? Now, we're dealing with cosmic beings, godlike creatures, and within this film poses and sparks several interesting moral dilemmas and philosophical questions, which I felt was really interesting because it's not necessarily obvious what is the right or wrong thing. So I think that will spark some very interesting debates with your friends after the film is done, on who is actually right. And I think in whatever context, if a film is able to make you question yourself, it's done a fantastic job. Onto my negatives, my cons, my things that I don't necessarily like. I think even though I can't remember how many Eternals there are maybe 8. None of the actor performances for any of the Celestials really stand out to me. My favorite is probably Gilgamesh, who's played by an actor, I don't know his name, I apologize, who is an actor from Train to Busan. South Korean zombie film, which is the best zombie film of all time in my very humble opinion. So it was nice to see him, but acting performances, especially for the main characters, no one stood out at all. And one of my pros for this film was that of the mythology, but at the same time, because of that, it was very, very exposition heavy, and it had to be because this is new characters, new story, new concept. And because I think they realize this, the pacing is off. So it will go very slow, and then very, very quickly, and then very, very slow, and then very, very quickly. And the action comes in the forms mostly in the terms of flashbacks. So you get like exposition, world building, action, 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 exposition, world building, action. So it's like if you're in a car and you're the passenger and someone's moving and a brake and fam, like drive smoothly. I don't know if it was my screening. You guys can let me know when you eventually see the film, but it seemed unnecessarily dark. In some parts it was very difficult for me to see what was going on. I don't know if that was my screening or if they're trying to hide CGI, I'm not sure, but it just seemed weirdly dark in places. Now the Eternals, even for comic book fans, are a deep cut. They're not new in terms of the comic book world, but they don't have much fanfare. So they've always had an interesting concept in the comics, but it's never really been that interesting a story to make me want to buy issues. I've been aware of them, but it's like, So I think that's kind of reflected here. Like, this is a very interesting concept, but the execution, again, is like, So I can't quite put my finger on what it is, but it's just missing that je ne sais quoi, just missing that X, just missing that to tie the bow together to make it. And it's not a bad movie by any stretch of the imagination, as Rotten Tomatoes would make you believe. However, it's just missing that oomph. You know what this film is like? This film is, and stay with me, this film is like a bowl of cornflakes or bran flakes. The majority of the MC movies are like Lucky Charms, Cocoa Pops, Frosted Flakes, high sugar content. So while this movie, being bran flakes or cornflakes, is not really that interesting to eat, is absolutely necessarily to be consumed for a balanced diet and for the expansion of the universe. You know what? I might be top 5 when it comes to analogies, and I'm not 5. Like, no one's favorite cereal is bran flakes, but at the same time, it's not everyday Cocoa Pops, because your teeth will decay. You will end up looking like a meth addict. That's another thing that I feel is very similar to Dune, because Dune Part 1 is something that is necessarily for you to build and expand the universe. In itself solely is not that interesting, but again, it's necessary to provide a platform for the future. So me, from my personal standpoint, I'm not even judging it from a MCU standpoint. I'm just judging it as like a sci-fi epic. And if I place it along other sci-fi epics, for me, it doesn't quite stack up. So overall, I feel like it was a welcome change of pace, but I feel like it could have been more. So for that reason, I will be giving Eternals a 6 out of 10. But I would encourage you to see the movie for yourself and make your own judgment. And when you have, or if you haven't, come back and talk to me and we can have a talk about it right in the comments below. That being said, I've been your boy Miles. We have been the Agents of S.C.R.E.E.N. And until the next video, which should be coming extremely soon,